Hello, Amrit.
Hi.
Welcome to our channel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today. So, you're a certified play therapist, right? Could you just tell us what play therapy is?
So usually adults therapy, there will be a lot of talking. So the client will visit the therapist and start talking, and then they develop a relationship where the adult will gain enough trust to share their difficulties or issues, and the therapist will give a resolution.
Okay.
But when it comes to children, they themselves won't be aware of the difficulties they are facing. So a direct talking therapy will not work for children. So that is when play comes into focus, where play is a child's natural way of expression. So if you observe a child playing, whatever the choice of words that they use or the story that they play, especially in a pretend play setting, the pretend play that they express will be a reflection of their inner world. So
Okay.
by playing with the child, the therapist can understand the child's inner world. So accordingly, the therapist can give certain resolutions, not directly, of course. So for an elder child, we will be able to help the child bring the issues from the unconscious to the conscious mind, and they will be able to find a resolution inside the structure of the play. And once they find the resolution here, they will be able to take it to their real world and then apply the same resolution there, and the difficulty will be alleviated that way.
Okay. When we say play therapy is therapy through play, is that what it
Absolutely.
means?
Yes, absolutely.
And is it typically only for children?
Typically, it works for maybe for 4-5 years to
Okay.
15, 16 years. But there are adult play therapists also. I myself
Okay.
am doing play therapy session for an adult right now.
Oh,
So I have found that it is very helpful for them. For an adult, it's going to be more directive. And I can directly say, of course, I'll take a few sessions to build the trust with the client, and I'm going to help them understand their difficulty and their own patterns or their own thought processes that is leading to this difficulty.
okay.
So even for adults, if the therapist can be helpful understanding their own problems, is for adults also. But typically, it best works for say 4 to 15 years of age.
Okay, so children as young as 4 years, like what you're saying, it would be very difficult to crack through them, right? I mean, I get it that you're making them play and, figuring out issues or figuring
Yes.
out concerns, but how do you actually crack through a child who's as young as 4-year-old to understand what the issue is?
Yeah. So because it's fully play based, for a therapist, it will be very clear as to what the child is going through. So
Okay.
with the choice of words or the choice of tone, the tone of their voice, movement. There is also movement
Okay.
analysis inside play therapy, in the scope of play therapy. So just by seeing the way the child chooses to move, how much space they use up in the room, how big their movements are or how small the move. So we can attune to the child's emotional state with these all input and understand their own inner world of how. And of course, for a younger child, a child of 4 years old, it's going to be much more subtle. The patterns are going to be much more subtle, and it is up to the therapist to take the time to build the relationship with the child.
Okay.
So a 4-year-old child is going to take longer for the therapist, and a child who has been recommended for play therapy has had some early childhood issues, early childhood difficulties, which are more traumatic for children. They don't have the necessary skills to handle big emotions. So the therapist has to work with the child, build the trust maybe over a session, 2 or 3 sessions, and then we will see that the child opens up unconsciously. Once they build the trust with the therapist, they will open up, and the therapist will be able to see what the child is facing difficulty with.
Okay, so when you say when the child is recommended, right? Typically, who brings these children to you? Is it only the parent, or are there other people who are
Sure.
there as well?
It's both parents and teachers from the school side.
Okay.
So parents who are able to see that the child is going through difficulties, proactive parents, they are able to help children out even when at the age of 6 or 7. The parents come with complaints from school also. So in the school, they are saying that the child is behaving so in a inappropriate manner, or he's being violent, or the teacher is saying he's always very silent, he doesn't mingle with others. So it comes from both teachers and parents. in a place where the parents are not emotionally available for the child to notice these issues. Only when it escalates to a misbehavior in the school, then it comes from the teachers. Ideally, it should come from the parents where they notice it on day one.
Okay. So when a parent or a teacher notices differences, when you're saying that is how they identify,
Yes.
right? What are the typical behavioral patterns that you see from the child through which the parent or the teacher can notice that child needs help?
Sure. So first, to base all this, behavior is always a expression call. It's a call for help from the child.
Okay.
So there are no negative behaviors or inappropriate. Even though we may use as adults, we may use such words. It's just a call for help.
Okay.
A child might not have the language, or might have the belief that no one listens to me, and the only way I can make an adult in my life listen to me is by escalating things and making a so-called inappropriate behavior, because the child definitely would have tried to communicate in some ways. A child initially would have tried crying, and then the child would have felt very sad, very isolated, and then or bottling of all these emotions as the last ditch effort, the child bursts out as a negative behavior. One such misbehaviors of throwing a tantrum very often. Every day it will be an hour or two of tantrum where the parent feels absolutely helpless on how to help the child. Or violence where the children hits other children, or children is being bullied by other children. Or child is very isolated from the social group. They don't want to interact with others. Or someone who is very dominating over others, where they feel very controlled at home. So here, when they have a social circle, they give what they receive at home. Or it can be otherwise also. If where any social circle, they receive something, they either do the same thing or do the inverse of it. So that's how it works.
So the examples or the behavioral patterns that you just quoted, all of them are, I think, considered pretty normal initially, right? Like when child throws a tantrum or cries, for instance, or even quoting it as sibling rivalry, for example. All of this, at least we are tuned to look up to that as something that is normal. Deal with it. It will get over. Give it some time. The child will be okay. Or things like, it's just a pattern. It's just time. It will pass. So where can parents actually identify that the child needs help? Focusing only on the fact that the parent wants the child to be looked into, not their convenience aspect.
Sure.
Let's look at only the area where they really want the child to be okay. Considering that as a situation, until when do you suggest parents can actually give it a try from their end, and how do they understand that yes, my child needs help and I need to seek help outside?
Okay, sure. So in any of these exhibiting behaviors is not normal if it extends more than a month.
Okay.
So, but even then, when to the attitude that this will move on or this time will heal is not a good attitude for parents, because whatever the difficulty is, within a month or two, the child is going to get used to it. They are not going to get the skills or the necessary. They're not going to have the resolution to that situation. So it's important that parents recognize the cause for the difficulty and make changes at home, instead of saying the child will get adapted. I have seen a lot of parents use this word that children, they are very strong, they will do this. Of course they are strong, but that doesn't give you the rights to make it worse for them.
How would you differentiate a child being adamant versus a child looking for help? Because I think the behavior is maybe a little similar.
Okay.
They learn from what they see around, right? How can a parent actually identify that, no, this is not a normal behavior, I think there is a problem, let me start, or maybe there's an underlying problem that I am not able to identify. But it also could be on the other side that they are pampered by the others around at home, so they are very adamant.
Sure.
So how do you differentiate that?
Okay. So just to describe more about your question,
Sure.
so adamant or spoiled child or
Pampered,
whatever, pampered, all these the base cause is lack of boundaries for the child. So
Okay.
the parents themselves mostly won't know about boundaries, and they won't have healthy boundaries in their own life. So such a
Okay.
parent will not establish the necessary boundaries for the child. Not in the restrictive sense, of course. There are very clear boundaries that shouldn't be trespassed, where the safety and respect for the for oneself, others, and the things around them. These are the only three boundaries that have to be there as a society itself. So as a child, there are only these three boundaries. Anything else that the parent puts is from their own social conditioning or from their own childhood. So even if the child is labeled as adamant, it is very clear that the child needs help.
Okay.
Because the lack of boundaries is impacting the child, and that lack of boundaries will impact their social life, because they will have difficulty forming and maintaining friendships, and it will affect their relationships, work when they grow up, everything. So being adamant and needing help, everything, the child, such behavior is not normal and the child needs help. But to differentiate between multiple referral criteria, which can be very similar, as you say, have a screening process in place. So for the first initial interview, we'll sit down with the parents and we'll understand the child's whole childhood.
So does play therapy really help when it comes to more serious issues, like where you have criminal involvement, or things like, say, there is an abuse or something like that within the house? I mean, I may not even be legal at that. It may not have gone out, or a trauma or something very sudden and serious. Can play therapy help a child there?
Absolutely.
Have you come across any such instance?
Yes, there was a child when they were playing with clay. Without going into too much detail, so there was a type of a disclosure. It's called a disclosure. So they will disclose in some way that they have been abused sexually.
Okay.
And physically, so it shows in their work, it shows in the way they play, they shows. So there was this client who they were working with the clay, and then once they finished working with the clay, it was very clear from what they made, it was very clear that they had gone through a sexual abuse.
Okay.
So the child is actually trying to communicate that they have gone through this. So it is up to the therapist to understand, not misinterpret. So whatever the child has brought it out on the clay, it's up to the therapist to take it further. If I have I had a disclosure, I have to talk to the parents. It is my legal responsibility to make sure they take it to the authorities involved. Identify the perpetrator, which sadly is mostly inside the extended family.
The house.
So that's called a disclosure. And a sexual abuse, especially, it's a very hard thing for the child, and it's not okay for the therapist or the parents to make the child go through the whole experience again and tell it to the parent or tell it to me. So that is when play therapy is very effective, because they don't have to talk about it. The whole thing can come from the unconscious mind. The content can come from the unconscious mind as an art or as a piece of clay or anything. And they can use any part of the play therapy toolkit, to express that.
Okay. So could you tell us about what all the toolkit involves?
Okay. So it starts from, say, board games, art and crafts, paint, sketch, various medium of art. And then there's a sand tray, dry sand tray, where children can use small toys and stuff, rocks, shells, and there's a lot of things. So they can use that to make a story inside the sand tray.
Okay.
And there is also a wet sand tray where they can use water. A wet sand tray is a completely different, brings out completely different things than the dry sand tray. So there is wet sand tray, and there is clay, and there is pretend play stuff, role playing, where the child can role play what they went through, or so there is role play. There are masks. So if the child is having difficulty saying something, I have seen that once they wear a mask, they get the courage, because they are not putting themselves out there. The mask becomes a safety screen for them. So Mask helps child verbalize things that they are not able to. Same with puppets. So once they wear a hand puppet and they talk for the puppet, they have the safety of difference, the distance between. So I am safe here, but I am talking what happened to me through the puppet. I am not talking, I am safe here, but the puppet is talking for me. So see how the puppet will help the child as well. So there is puppets, finger puppet, a doll house. Some abuse, sexual abuse or physical abuse that happens at home are disclosed inside a doll house, because that the doll house is their house. And sometimes disclosures happens on the toy bed that I have on the bed. So sometimes it happens in the kitchen. A physical abuse disclosure will happen in the kitchen of the doll house. So doll house is also an important part of the toolkit. And then there is a teddy bear with a blanket on a small mattress. So children who have not felt safe or secure or haven't experienced the embrace of an adult will take up to the teddy bear a lot. I have seen. So a few of my clients, they choose to, as soon as they enter the therapy room, they will come cuddle the teddy bear, pull over the blanket on them, and they'll just lie there for 5-10 minutes before they start their work. So for them, it's very clear that the warmth and just the feeling of being contained is very important, because in their childhood, due to the lack of boundaries or whatever, they have never felt safe in a contained place. So the containing is very important for them. So yeah, these are some of the major things.
So with what you're saying, it looks like it's an entire process, right, where the child is ready to depict whatever it is using whichever toolkit. So how do you deal with that process? Is it like a one-time thing, or is it multiple sessions that you take with the child? How does that work?
Sure. So when a child comes for play therapy, they have to come for a minimum of 12 sessions. So it is important because the child is not going to express whatever they went through immediately. So I'll have to spend each session to build the trust with the child. And the whole therapy session will be child-led. I won't be directing the child in any specific way. I won't be encouraging them to talk about whatever the difficulty that they're facing. I will only be merely present there as an adult who's fully present and who is fully interested in what the child has to say and they want to bring out to the play therapy room. What the child chooses, what part of the play kit the child chooses is totally up to them, and it's depends on what they feel safe with initially.
So would you say that if I were to create a space at home as a parent where the child feels safe and feels okay to express, a lot of these issues will not be there?
No, this is a more, of course, having a playroom with a sand tray, it's going to be.
I don't mean the toolkit. I'm not getting into the toolkit bit, but a space where a child feels okay to express whatever the child feels. If the parent can build that bond with the child and create a space at home where the child feels safe to express, do you think that will actually work, or does play therapy have one level above?
No. A parent building a relationship with the child is the basic need for the child. So it should have happened no matter what. For a child who has not had that secure base with the mother or with the family, with the parent, is only going to have difficulties. So, but I have had parents with whom I have talked and said, your child needs you. You spend at least 1 hour per day playing with the child. And then they have done changes at home where they sit child without the phone, without any distractions, with genuine interest in their life, their world, and to understand what they are going through. Massive changes has happened with the child only because the parent has taken the time to build that relationship, build a secure base, which for some reason they fail to do so in the child's early childhood.
So would you say that a child would still need therapy if, as a parent, I create a space that the child feels safe to express mentally and physically? I create a safe space at home where the child doesn't feel judged for expressing whatever be it. Do you feel that most of the issues that the child tries to come to you for can be dealt with at home in a better manner?
Sure, definitely. I mean, if the child didn't have that until now,
Huh.
but the parent has come to a realization that this is what the child needs. Definitely, the such a space where the child now has a new space to express their difficulties or their emotion, it's definitely going to help the child. If there is a trauma or a relocation or a sudden death in the family, a parent is not equipped or trained to handle that. One, they themselves might be going through the grief or something.
Okay.
Another point is a play therapist is trained and has an experience of dealing with a wide range of uh, children who need help. So even though a parent making a huge change where they decide to be more available for the child, make the child feel safe, it can't replace therapy.
What has been the most difficult case that you have handled so far?
That's one thing I would like to clarify. So we would say that, say, a physical abuse or a violence or a death is more severe than when a child is not able to make friends. But the trauma is the same actually. For we can't measure trauma. So even though the outside circumstances can be different, as adults we say that this is worse than this. It all depends on how the child perceives it. A child can go through a grief process smoothly, but still have friendship issues at school. So we can't say one trauma incident is more severe than the other. It fully depends on how the child has perceived it and the skills that they have to how to cope up with that situation. So I had a girl child. Uh, she has been sexually abused for 2-3 years continuously by a relative, and at the same time she was also being sexually abused by a neighbor.
Okay.
So after working, I worked with her for a long time. So minimum is 12 sessions, but I'll talk with the parents and I'll extend it if I feel the child needs that. So after a long term therapy with the child, the base issue was the neglect of the parent. So the relative who was abusing the child was inside the house in the presence of the parents, as in not in the same room. The parents were in the same house, but the child was being sexually abused by the relative. So you can see how neglectful the parent can be. And incidentally, sexual predators, they can pick up on an neglected child. So they know that if I do something to this child, there is no one that can question me. So they have this skill of identifying children who are helpless, who don't have someone to speak up for them, and then they choose such children. And because they don't have the child has to go through this trauma for an extended period of time, and it takes a toll on them for a lifelong if they don't seek professional help. This particular child, uh, I had to identify the perpetrators, sadly in this case, let the parents know, and the parents went through their own period of denial of saying no, this didn't happen, which was even more painful for the child. The reason the child didn't go to them, because intuitively the child knew they won't believe me. My mother and father won't believe me that this and this person is doing this and this stuff to me. That is the reason the child has not gone to them all these years, which itself is a very sad state of affairs.
True.
But even after the disclosure, I go tell the parents that this is what is happening. They are still in denial. They took some time to come out of the denial to accept, yes, I couldn't accept it as soon as you said, but I also have seen this, and now I am able to see and made changes at home. And they changed house and they did a lot of things for this. And then after that, I had to work with some time for the child to come to an understanding where whatever happened is not their fault. It didn't happen because they wanted it to happen, or it's because they caused it. So from this case and from other cases I have also studied is the child puts the blame on themselves, saying I am the cause for this for happening for myself, and they carry this guilt and self-loathing all their life. So, and sexual abuse cases, because the mind and body is so connected, sexual abuse cases, there is a good chance that if it's left unaddressed, developed cervical cancer and other type of physical symptoms in later life, especially for girl children. So it's very important that through the therapy process they understand it's something out of their power, and it's not their fault, and they don't deserve to have gone through that. And work through emotions of feelings of self-hatred and self-disgust, all that, take it out of the child, saying no, you are okay, this shouldn't have happened, and I will make sure that it won't happen again. So I'll also talk to the parents to say it is your responsibility to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. And I have to empower the child to stand up for themselves. The original reason why the child was not able to say no, because their no as a child was not respected. So it starts at birth. When a child starts to, when a mother feeds the child, when the child turns away, it means I have had enough milk. Stop feeding me. The mother has to respect that. If the mother says no, I know how much milk you need, and you force the child to feed more, it's saying you don't know your body. I know your body better. You don't trust your body signals. You don't trust. You don't know yourself. I know, and your no doesn't mean anything to me. So the safeguarding children from sexual abuse starts from infancy, where respecting their body boundaries, respecting their no, and respecting their autonomy, the power they have over their own body. So it goes back to childhood.
How do you deal with these and correct these for the parent and the child? Like, do you happen to redirect parents also to therapists in certain cases?
Absolutely. So in some cases, the parents themselves need therapy, extended therapy. For the child, I model autonomy. I model self-respect. So they have the choice of saying yes and no, and they have. If the child has a need to exert power over others, I will let him or her exert power over me. I will become the powerless child whom she felt. He or she will be able to exert the power on me, and by doing so over 2 or 3 sessions, they will wither the need to be powerful, or the need to feel power over others. So that's how it is. So by modeling and giving the space for what their tendencies, once they experience it, and they'll just throw it away. So this is what I wanted all my life. No one gave me, but now that I have it, I feel it's not good. All this is a very unconscious process. So whatever they need, I'll model within the safe space of the therapy room.
How important is it for somebody to know this space before trying it out on their child? I'm asking this question because people will be listening. Somewhere they will draw their own, methods of dealing with their children. When you said mud helps or sand helps, somewhere maybe unconsciously a parent will put a tray of sand in front of the child and say, okay, do something, and then they will have their own interpretations, which could be right, wrong, you never know.
Sure,
so what is it that you would like to tell people regarding that space?
Okay. I'll speak to the parent itself.
Sure.
Please be the parent. Please don't be a therapist. Being a parent is a much more important job than a therapist. I wish I was out of a job, because parents do a wonderful job with their child. So focus on becoming a better parent so that I go out of a job soon, please.
How can play therapy particularly, help adolescent, preteen children, those that are specifically dealing with hormonal changes? Like, can it help?
It won't just be hormonal change, so it will have the exhibiting behaviors will be a bit different, mostly at that age, depending on how they were parented, how their parents. It will be either rebellion, or it will be completely suppressed.
Okay.
personality.
Okay.
So it can be, it's a spectrum, so it can be in any of the spectrum. So depending on what the adolescent needs, I can offer the toolkit and the room in a specific way. So for a child who needs to establish their individuality, they will themselves will choose a specific set of toolkits, and the way things I model also will be to reassure that they are an individual no matter what, but such and such behaviors are not needed for them to prove their individuality. For each child, based on whatever they are going through, I can help. Even for adolescents, it will definitely help them go through work through difficulties that they are facing.
Okay. How about kids who are in the ADHD spectrum or are autistic? Does this help? Can it help?
One, the tool, because there is a sand tray and art and stuff, there are a lot of sensorial work, which is part of which will, for an ADHD child or for a child who is in the spectrum, as part of their OT regiment itself, they will be working on a lot of sand play and stuff. So in a therapeutic setting, it will definitely help them. But of course, it's based on the exhibiting behavior. So if a child is exhibiting some behavior that is not acceptable, then of course play therapy will help. But if a child just has ADHD, just diagnosed ADHD or ASD, and then I don't think the child will benefit from a play therapy, because an OT or physical training will already help them.
Okay. Have you had any experience of handling a child where you were not able to crack through the child to understand what the issue is?
Yeah, for example, a client, they were only using role play materials for 8 sessions. So I was really not sure if my therapy is helping the child or not. And all certified therapists, they have to take supervision regularly. So I have a supervisor with whom I have to take supervision. So I took this to the supervisor, and they told that the child is taking a lot more time to build trust and to open up. And the supervisor gave me a few suggestions of, you can try this or that. So I took that back to the therapy room and then made some changes, and I was able to see the child was able to bring more of their issues into the room.
Okay. To deviate from what we've been speaking, what made you choose this field?
Okay. I didn't have the best childhood. I didn't have the best school. So I studied in a school where my individuality and my needs were not respected. As in any different traditional school, all they cared about was marks. So it was very clear for me that I didn't belong in that system, even though I went through the whole thing. And then, as in an attempt to heal myself, I started a Montessori school. So even running that Montessori school, I felt that the core belief of my Montessori school, learning shouldn't be fear induced, as how it is in traditional school. So it shouldn't be fear induced. There should be no comparison. That the individuality of the child and the individual interest of the child should be respected. So giving such a space for the children was very fulfilling for me. But still, I felt helpless with some children who had severe difficulties and needed more support. So that is when I learned more about play therapy and Play Therapy UK, where I was trained. So I went through the training, and then I started practicing for children within my own school, with the consent of the parents, of course. And once I started doing that, and the teachers said there's a tremendous change in the way the child is in the classroom, and even the parents say the child has totally turned on a new leaf. Then I understood, okay, play therapy really works, and there are a lot more other children in other schools, in traditional schools, who need more help than in just my school. So I started reaching out other schools, also teachers of other schools. I started presenting about play therapy to other parents, and then slowly children from other schools or and other social circles also started coming in, and that's how this whole thing started.
Um, could you just highlight on the confidentiality behind play therapy? Are parents typically part of this session?
Okay. No, parents are not part of the session.
Okay.
So on the first day, when the parents come for an inquiry, of course, I show them the playroom around. They are free to just look around the play therapy room. But I very clearly tell the parents that whatever happens in the playroom stays in the room. I'll have on the first session with the child, I'll draw a confidentiality agreement with the child on paper using diagrams. I'll let the child know whatever happens in this room stays here. But I'll tell the child that they are free to share whatever they want with the parents or with their friends or the teachers. But it is very important that the child knows that whatever happens here stays here, because only then they will open up to me once they build the trust with me. So that confidentiality is very important.
Okay. Could you also throw some light on how play therapy actually originated? Where is it from?
Okay. Play as a therapeutic tool is not something new. So it has always been there. So it starts right from Jungian days. So play therapy, the people who formulated play therapy, they were working with Jung, and a lot of Jungian symbols even today they appear on sand trays. So it's based on archetypal structure of the human psyche. So it's anchored deep inside the individual. So it's not a fad or it's not a trend that is coming. So it is as old as psychology itself, play therapy. So the people who formulated play therapy, and it has been revived over the years, but the base still is with the father of psychology, Jung only.
How important do you think it is for schools to know that they need to have a play therapist around?
Right now, a lot of schools have a counselor.
Counselors, yes.
So, but I'm not sure how effective they are, because I will speak from a lack of knowledge.
Sure.
I don't know how effective they are. If they are trained in play therapy, they are definitely going to be more effective. Or not just play therapy, they have to be trained in some sort of child development, some sort of credibility with working with children. If not all schools who have a counselor will have a playroom. So that is where if I am working with another child, I carry the whole toolkit in a suitcase to the other school, set it up temporarily, and then work with the child in their own school. So that's how it works. So I would ideally each school should have a playroom with a play therapist, a certified play therapist, and for someone who wants to pursue play therapy, because there are a lot of scope both in India and abroad, play therapists are in need. So if they want to get trained in play therapy, it is very important that they find out a good organization, because I personally have had friends who said they have gone through some play therapy coaching and it is not standardized at all. They just some random person who themselves were taught, they start to teach others without any without a deep understanding of the concept. So if someone wants to become a play therapist, it's very important to get trained by the top 2 or 3 international. So
which ones are those?
So I am a member of PT UK and PTI, National and PT UK. And there is also this American organization also. So I will either of these two I will recommend if you ask me.
Wrapping this wonderful conversation, where can parents reach out to if they want to connect with a play therapist? Is there a single source of a community or a group or a support group or something like that? Or is there a website? Is there some resource where they can come and connect?
Yeah, if the family is in Chennai and if they want to reach out, they can reach out to me. They can reach out to me on my school website.
Can you name your school?
It's trustthechild.com/play therapy. It's my play therapy page. If the family is out of Chennai, I have a network throughout India. So I have a few therapists in Bangalore, some in Delhi. So if they need help, they can contact me and I'll put them on to my
Okay.
references.
Thank you so much, Amrit, for that lovely conversation with you. I hope it has reached a lot of people and they understand what this space is all about.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
So right now I practice in my own school also. So it's a Montessori school. The name is Trust the Child Montessori School. It's in Besanagar. The website is trustthechild.com/play therapy. So if you need to get in touch with me, please do.